Hi guys, and welcome to the latest edition of Train With On TV. And today I'm delighted to have a really good sports scientist with us. It's Mr. Ryan Devlin. Ryan, welcome to the show, pal.
Cheers, Chris. Thanks for having me, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So, Ryan, for the guys that are watching, just want to give them a brief outline as to who you are and give them a bit of an insight to your journey.
Ryan Devlin. So, originally from County Down in Ireland. Suppose my kind of journey started from my sporting background. So my sporting background is Gaelic football. So I've always played Gaelic football up to like a decent level back home in Ireland. Kind of from that, I decided I want to go into kind of the sport, and I've always interested in how the body works, moves, interacts. So I decided to do sports science at John Moores University. So off the back of that, I'd done a strength and conditioning internship, which was top quality, run by like Carl Evans in Liverpool, John Moores University.
Nice.
And yeah, it was really good. And that's kind of where I found my interest for strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
So then off the back of that, I decided to do, that was the first year of the new MSc in strength and conditioning. It was kind of mainly run by Rob Erskine and Dave Clark. And then Carl Evans, he chipped in with some stuff as well. So that was really good. So then off the back of that, I had the option to kind of stay in Ireland and do a placement, or stay in England and do a placement, or maybe go back home for a while. So because I hadn't been home in a couple of years, I seen it, thought it was a good opportunity to maybe go home and do something. As well as staying with the family and all that kind of stuff. So from there, I was down in Dublin working with the Irish women's hockey team.
Oh, nice.
But because it was only part-time and had to travel a good bit, it just wasn't working logistically. So from that, being in touch with some connections the uni had with Ulster Rugby, I ended up doing a 6-week placement up at Ulster Rugby.
Oh, cool.
So which was good. That was good, working with kind of Irish and international rugby athletes. Which was good, Rory Best and the like. So that was really, really good. So that was my kind of first elite kind of experience.
Yeah.
From there, when I finished that placement, I was kind of in a bit of a hole, didn't really know what to do. But I realised because the sports science industry in Ireland is quite poor, to be honest. There's a lack of kind of professional teams, and obviously England's bigger, it's more money, you've got loads of football teams. An opportunity came up at Crew Alexandra first team, through one of the boys at uni, kind of put my name in for that, and I moved straight back to Liverpool then and spent 14 months working with the first team there. And then I think it was last November, a job came up at Sheffield Wednesday under 18s as the lead sports scientist. So I applied for that and was fortunate enough to get that job. So yeah, I've been here since November, and that's kind of my journey up to date. So yeah, it's been a long grind so far, but it's been good.
So going back to the 14 years, I suppose you gained about 14 years experience within 14 months, haven't you? Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
It sounds pretty good. So I mean, what was the biggest difference that you find? So obviously Ireland's known more for its Gaelic football, and obviously it's had a lot of success in the Six Nations with rugby and that. What's the biggest differences you found in terms of working as an S&C coach, sports scientist capacity over in England, in comparison with what it's like in Ireland?
Well, obviously, because I always grew up with Gaelic football background, there was never any like full-time S&Cs or sports scientists, because it's an amateur sport. Like, they don't get paid for doing it, so they're not going to invest money into getting all this kind of specialized support. So me going into Ulster Rugby, that was my kind of first elite experience, and it kind of blew my mind, to be honest with you, of how elite it was. Like the gym sessions, the programming, the way they monitored stuff, it was unbelievable. But to be fair, in Ireland now recently, there has been, even the top kind of club teams and counties have invested a lot in kind of your GPS, your strength conditioning, especially your big teams like your Dublins and your Mayos, like, because they're seeing the value of it. So and that's where in Ireland, obviously the big teams, they're kind of pulling away because they've got so much money. But hopefully that'll be rectified soon.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Teams are really starting to buy into it, especially like I've had younger kind of amateur Gaelic footballers message me loads on Instagram asking me for programs, so they do really see the benefit of us obviously taking games to the next level.
That's really good. That, I mean, the the thing with Gaelic football is it's quite deceiving, isn't it? Because from an outsider looking in to obviously to your national sport, looking at it from the outside, it looks as if everything's professional. Because obviously they play in stadiums. There is a lot. There is quite a big build-up with it as well. So yeah, I mean, it's deceiving how the difference between on the inside and on the outside. And I suppose.
Yeah, I think what people got to understand is a lot of people forget about the Gaelic football is played in once you hit the quarterfinal stage and the last 16, that kind of stuff. It's played in an 80,000 seater stadium. Like,
yeah, it's great.
You know what I mean? I think people underestimate how physical that sport is. And if anyone's ever played Gaelic football, and the amount you have to run and the amount of high speed run you have to do and covering, it's vicious. Like,
not bad. You know what it is? Is it like a what I see is it's like a combination of, is it football, running, basketball, rugby, a bit of everything.
Of like rugby and kind of football combined. And then I think it's taken if there was one sport to mimic, it'd be Aussie rules football.
Okay.
So a lot of your top Gaelic footballers who are kind of physically ready for Aussie rules football get drafted in, maybe to do trials and stuff over in Aussie rules. So but yeah, because they have a big link. They play, I think it's once every 2 years, they play in the International Rules Series, where the Australians would come over to Ireland and play, and the Irish would go over to Australia. People don't realise,
That's pretty good then. So that is that. So as a young sports scientist going into Ulster, one of Europe's big guns in the world of rugby union, and working with a legend like Rory Best. I mean, how was that? How did he receive you coming in, and what were the biggest take homes from that?
Oh yeah, to be honest, compared for me where I was then and where I am now, I was a little boy then. To be honest, the first time I had interaction with Rory Best was actually asked to spot him on a bench press.
Wow.
And he's benching, I don't know what it was, maybe 140, 150, and I was asked to spot him. And it was just this is crazy. You know what I mean?
Did you have to get someone else on the other side as well?
Yeah, exactly. when you get to that level, because obviously he'd been there, done it, and was still doing it at the time. Them boys, just the professionalism, them boys showing everything they do is crazy.
Yeah,
that's being at such a high level. You know what I mean?
That's pretty awesome. Then, and obviously you come over to Crewe, and did you see any similarities between the way that the sports science departments run in football and rugby, or because obviously when you look at the technical element, there's huge differences. I suppose with rugby, you're working more on power and strength, whereas I suppose football, you're looking more, hypertrophy, power and speed, isn't it, really? So to be honest, the crossover there, and if there is
crossover. So first, rugby players, I'm sure anyone who works in rugby, they love lifting.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think the big kind of, for me, it's every time they step into a weight room, they're in their head is what adaptation can we make here to improve our performance?
Yeah.
Them boys will lift and squat 2-3 times a week.
Yeah, I saw that.
They'll do power clusters on a Friday before a game, or game day -1.
Wow.
Yeah, for a potentiation effect.
So what was that like in terms of the recovery? Because obviously when they're lifting quite heavy, you're looking 48, 72 hours, aren't you, really, for proper recovery? Did you? So with that, did you find any trends in terms of injuries or
Well, because I was only there for a short period, I was just I didn't get too deep into the whole kind of monitoring side thing. It was kind of more for hands-on experience and just observing. But what I found was these boys have been lifting for so long, the bodies have just adapted to being able to do that. And you got to understand, these boys would have had 7-8 physios in the building at one time. So I mean, they could get a massage anytime they want. They had all the supplements on top. It was crazy. That
is insane. That is. Yeah. I suppose when you got that facility, I suppose you can afford to do it, really, can't you? So then
exactly.
obviously went over to Crewe, and now at Wednesday. So talk us through a typical day in the life of your role now, and what you've done so far since you've been at Hillsborough.
Yeah, so Crewe, I suppose the role of Crewe and at Wednesday it's kind of the same kind of format. So a typical day for me would be, you get in, well, obviously it's changed now because of the whole coronavirus situation, but a typical day for me would be come in, get breakfast, then I get the boys in the gym.
Yeah.
Maybe get the boys. It all depends on what day it is, because on a Monday and a Tuesday they'll have gym, and a Thursday they'll have gym. Then a Friday we wouldn't have much gym because it's obviously tapering the game on Saturday. So like a typical kind of Monday for us would be come in, to maybe do some power work in the gym, maybe 20 to 30 minutes. And then they go out, do their training on the pitch. They'd come in for lunch, and then I'd maybe either have them in the gym again, doing the kind of heavy, slow movements, or they would have maybe some ILP sessions, which are individual learning prep. So they would have, so that would be with the coaches would take them out onto the pitch and say, strikers, you go work on that. Defenders, you go work on that. And then they have their education, because the boys that I coach are full time, education wise. So it's a pretty heavy program. Like it's very hard to squeeze everything in.
I can imagine. So the gym work they do when they come in, I suppose is that like their initiation sort of phase. So they're doing obviously all the mobility element of it first, and then like the heavy sort of load before they then go off to the technical practice and that.
Yeah. So it all depends on what day I would have them on. So obviously on a Tuesday, for example, is their high day. So on a Tuesday, so Monday they're still in that recovery phase. 2 days after a match is a kind of a typical week. 2 days after a match in that recovery phase. Tuesday then to be ready for their big day. That's a big kind of their high speed running day, covering a lot of ground. And then in the gym they'll get hammered as well, like all their eccentrics, their hamstring work, the quad work, get their heavy lifting in. And then because they're off Wednesday, so because I can hit them hard on a Tuesday because they're off Wednesday, recover Tuesday. In terms of the training stuff, we kind of wee bit of a hybrid, because the way we do our shape on a Thursday, because we're on a different facility, and then in the gym we more kind of the power based exercises. And Friday I'll try to get something into them, but then it depends kind of how they're feeling running into the game. So that's kind of where we're coming from. But that could change again if we have a midweek game.
That's true, yeah.
Which sometimes we do on a Tuesday, and then if the squad split, then maybe the 17s go off and the 18s are left. Like, just depends what the situation is.
So I suppose it's a lot. So you have to adapt really to it, I suppose, to what's going on.
Yeah, that's I think because I went from part time being a crew to full time at Wednesday. I think that was the first couple of weeks I started. I couldn't get my head around how adaptable. Like the boys used to say, "Don't lose your head," like, because I was like freaking out. I was like, "There's no structure here."
It's really hard.
Very hard. You have to be adaptable in these situations. Like, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Obviously, as an S&C coach, one of the first things that you do at the end of this, like at the end of the season, the first thing you do, isn't it, is periodize for the next sort of like 9 to 10 months that you. With the players, and you can spend up to a week, if not longer, sometimes saying, "Right, we're going to do X, Y, and Z," and then all of a sudden you may as well.
I don't plan. Like, this is what I mean. Like, I used to when I was in uni. Is I think that stuff in universities and courses don't teach you. People talk about periodization, like, but you can't plan for the next month. Like, do you know what I mean? Especially not in this field. So like I would have I'll have things I want them to do in a week, and if I get it through them, that's it. So for example, I want them to get a heavy dose in, I want them to get a power dose in, I want them to sprint, I want them to hip hinge, I want to get the hamstring groundwork in. If I get that in, it's a good week.
Happy, yeah.
And then if I find winners of opportunity along that week to get other stuff in, like I don't know, like a speed session or some extra volume work, whatever is needed for the athlete, then I'll try to get it in.
Yeah.
But periodization, I plan just from week to week, like.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And with that, is it? I'm assuming it's generic, really, isn't it? With maybe adaptations for individual players, dependent on whether how long they've played at the weekend, or whether they've got games coming up and everything. I suppose
that's what I mean. So like, if I had lads, if lads have played a full 90 on a Saturday, they'll do a different session. The boys on the Monday, then the subs who didn't play. So with the lads on the Monday. Essentially, like, the lads who don't play on a Saturday probably get more of a stimulus the week ahead, because they're not as fatigued from the game. So it kind of works out. I know they haven't played, but at the same time they're getting more of the gym stuff. Yeah. So we're in the Monday, I can come in and say, "Right, lads, you can load up here." But then the other lads, they can be like, "Right, taper it back a bit, just do something to keep you ticking through. Maybe get your mobility work done. Slap on 50% of your 1RM on the bar, kind of squat." Just get your mobility back in your hips. With the other lads, I can say, "Right, you just didn't play on Saturday. We can go after it here."
Yeah, that's good. So
it's all.
Yeah. So by the time they get back on the pit, when they get back on the training ground, I guess the muscular fatigue levels are as good as the same, really, aren't they? Because obviously, there's still going to be there's going to be a big load put through the lads that have played 75 minutes, of course, and then there's still going to be the fatigue from the lads that are lifting like 80% 1RM on the, that morning, which is really interesting. So in terms of support, I mean, in terms of how it works, because a lot of guys will probably be interested in what the relationship is between the sports science team of a championship club at academy status with the technical side, because of course, first and foremost, the footballers, which is something I found out through working in academies before. What's the I mean, how do you tend to communicate with the technical staff in terms of how the workload goes week to week? Obviously, we spoke about earlier about we have to adapt on like a week to week basis, but with what sort of involvement do the technical staff have on the fitness element in terms of, do they give you say, right, well, we're going to work on attacking runs through the midfield on a Tuesday, so you need to sort of reduce load on on like aerobic endurance on that day, for example?
Yeah. So first of all, because we've got the 18 squad, we're quite a tight group. So there'll be me, the analyst, the physio, 2 coaches.
Yeah.
So it's quite a tight knit group. And to be fair, they have a really good understanding of kind of sports science principles. That's and cool. like we want to create the way we play football. We want the boys to be 100% at it at all times, so they know that they need them fitness levels and they need that high intensity levels to be able to do what they're telling them to do. Again, it's just, I suppose the problem is it's just kind of trying to get the balance between the two.
Yeah.
But from the way we communicate, so they on a training day we'd sit down on the first thing in the morning. We say, right, what's our numbers? What do you want? So I'd always that. So first of all, people got to remember, the football comes first.
Yeah.
It's the football is what matters. They tell me what they're doing in the session, and I adapt what I want them to do. Do you know what I mean?
Frustrating from our perspective as fitness coaches, isn't it? Unfortunately, it's what we've got.
It's just the way it is. So what will tend to happen is I'll have kind of my metrics that I want the boys to hit in training. So on a high day, if I want them to hit 600 to 800, 900 meters of high speed running, I'll say, right, but we have live GPS.
Yeah.
So I can see what the lads are hitting in the session. So if we've got to the end of a session, the coaches have done what they got to do, then I'll say, right, we've only hit 400. I'll just do top ups at the end,
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good.
To try and see if any commotion about it, pulling boys out, and right, we need to do this, and this. Do you know what I mean? So it just saves a lot of hassle, to be honest with you, in my opinion.
Sounds pretty good. So really, the communication is really good there, and it's almost like the meet, like a meeting first thing in the morning to get it going, which is great, because obviously a lot of the guys that are watching this now won't really have, I suppose the assumption is sports science are one team, technical are another team, and it's basically a case of they go to the gym at 10 o'clock and then they go on the pitch at 11 o'clock, for example.
Yeah, to be fair, we had because of the pre-season, we haven't been able to get in the gym as much as we would have wanted.
Yeah.
Because of the whole COVID situation. And yesterday, funny enough, Monday in training, the manager said in front of the lads, this is the most frustrated boy in the club, because can't get the boys into the gym, but he understands, because he understands I put such an emphasis on it and know how important it is.
Yeah.
Because I don't want the boys breaking down. And touch wood, it's been fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just one of the battles you have to try and overcome. But they are very good. They do really understand the importance of it.
That's pretty good. That. So obviously we're going through COVID, and there's a lot. There's going to be fans. Grunting through the teeth about players' performance. They're not fit enough. Have they had enough recovery? We've heard different bits through the media in terms of, obviously, the players are coming back in groups of 5, and then they go away, and then another group of 5 come in. How have you found that transition from obviously having a big group to then having, and how have you managed to adapt to bring the players back in that way?
To be fair, I actually think the whole training in smaller groups at the start was actually quite good, because at a time like that, you would have maybe 4 or 5 coaches and you have 4 or 5 players, and there's no hiding places.
No.
Especially when they're in the run, especially when they're doing the running and the conditioning stuff, there's no hiding places. But at the same time, like with us, that only lasted a couple of weeks, so it was good to get the team back as a group again. But to be fair, it worked smoothly enough. But listen, at the end of the day, like I said to the lads, like if you've got any type of equipment at home, if you can get, like I'll tell the lads what to do. Like I've given them all programs they can do outside of Wednesday, and then again, the onus is just on them whether they want to do it. Like I can't take them on individually to.
Yeah, this is it.
It's Sheffield. I mean,
it's something I found with a lot of sports. You know, it's with, like I was speaking to Jordan Godfrey, who's at Leicester Riders basketball, and he was saying that he's done literally what you said. Then he's given the lads gave the lads a program. I spoke to a couple of other S&C coaches within like League One, League Two teams as well, and they were saying that I think they had like a daily meeting. I think it was, so they'd have like a WhatsApp group, and they'd just go in there and they'd report and say, right, well, I've done program one. I've done program one. This is what exercise. This is how I feel. Job done. And then on occasions, they'll have like a Zoom call, and then they'll just get on. They'll get on and do like a high intensity interval training circuit, for example, on Zoom.
I think
it's really interesting.
I think what I noticed was, which was, listen, I know COVID happened. I went back down for 4 months. So I went back down. I spent 4 months with my family, which was great. But it really showed me what boys wanted and what boys don't, essentially. Because there was some lads, my phone didn't stop over COVID, like, because obviously they could do. So I was sending out running plans, so I was making sure, right, are the boys still sprinting? Because if they hadn't sprinted in 3 months and come back in a training session first week of pre-season, they're going to break down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I must say, the lads who stuck to it, were quality, like, were class. But it just shows you boys that are really committed to the cause, trying to always better themselves. Like, so I was pleased about that. Like,
that's really gonna, and that's obviously gonna then transition into, you know, the selection, isn't it? Of course, because if those lads that aren't cutting the mustard, basically, one, I guess it's going, especially at academy level, the first thing that any lead phase coach is going to think is obviously the discipline and the attitude, isn't it? So when it comes to renewal of, if it's a phase one scholar that's coming towards the end of the contract, you know, if they can't be bothered to do that in pre-season, or in like a pre-season, you know, what are they going to do if they go first year pro? It's because discipline's obviously a big thing, because obviously you've got the technicals team, you've got the coach at this fitness team, but ultimately it does come down to the players' discipline, doesn't it, really? And like you say,
yeah, listen, at the end of the day, like, I know the lads I work with are 16, 17, 18, but they're getting to that stage where as soon as they pass over to 18, they're into man football, like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. If they want it at that stage, they're going to go after it, do you know what I mean? And it definitely, like I spoke to my manager every week on the phone about who was mentioning me, and he knew that every week of COVID, he knew he was writing to me, like.
Yeah, it was.
And at the end of the day, that these boys are trying to be professional footballers, like.
Yeah.
That's just it. They're not trying to be. They're trying to be on big money jobs here, like.
Nah, this is it. I mean? Well, it's scary because I was speaking to a lad who's just signed for a non-league club. He got released by a League Two club last season, and he's just gone in. I was speaking to him last week. He's just gone signed for Conference South, North Conference South team, I think it was. He's only been there 6 weeks, but automatically, he's been there 5 minutes, but he's already wanting to go out on loan because he knows that he's not going to get exposed to. Well, he's had a bit of a hip knock. So he knows that. I think he was on the bench for the first team friendly at the weekend, but he still wants to go out on loan, and it's because his mindset is he's not getting the game time in the U18s or U23s, so he wants to go out there and play step 3, step 4, whatever it may be, just so he can progress, and he doesn't care what level it is, as long as he can, you know, become a bit more physical. And it's mad. I mean, when it comes to the transition of the players, I mean, how do you find how does that sort of work in terms of the integration phase? Because obviously there's going to be times where within the first team where they're going to have a lot of players out. So the first thing they're going to look at doing obviously is going to the academy, so that the club doesn't have to spend any money. So how do you manage the transition from academy into first team?
Yeah, I think down from my job or my perspective, like, I'm trying to, obviously we want to get as many teams results as we can, but I'm essentially what I'm like, what I'm doing is trying to prep boys as best I can for the first team setup. Like,
Yeah.
So that's why for me, I place an awful emphasis on the physical side of it, like getting the boys in the gym as much. Because as soon as I've had, like, even last year when I was out, some of the 18s now that signed their pro contracts, they went up and trained with the first team, and they come to me and go, Jesus Christ, Ryan, there's beasts up there. Like, and I was like, I know they are.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's all right matching them. It's all right. They can match them probably physically in terms of running.
Yeah.
In terms of getting their high speed running, because our boys have done hard. Like, they've done hard days, like running wise. Do you know what I mean? They can handle that, but it's just the sheer physicality of getting pushed and shoved, and so that's why they do. A lot of them realize the importance of it, and that's why a lot of them have said to me, like, send them plans, especially the 18s now. Like, they know that they've got probably about whatever time they've got, maybe 6 months to kind of stack on as much kind of strength, power as they can. Like, so
it's a different ball game, isn't it? Completely, because obviously like you say, the physicality. But when you get to the first team, of course, sometimes you only sign like a 1-year contract, or in some occasions a 6-month contract. So you've got to. I mean, as I was watching the All or Nothing Tottenham Hotspur the other day, and I think Mourinho went in there and he says he was saying that the first team were too soft, which is why they went on that spell last season where they kept throwing goals, they kept conceding goals in the last sort of 20-30 minutes. So I think it was Eric Dyer had gone in, and he went in for a crunch challenge on Son, and then obviously Son being one of the main strikers for Spurs, he ended up then getting injured, and he was out for about 2 weeks as a result of that challenge. But I suppose the question then is, what preparation did he have prior to becoming a first team player? Because obviously his background in football is going to be different to what Dyer is, because the facilities that they've got in Asia are going to be different to what we've got over here. And this is
I suppose with that one, like, that's such a like, listen, that could have played a part in what happened there, but then again, you can't really. I don't think you can really predict injury. Do you know what I mean? If that was a contact injury, what he's done, like, do you know what I mean? It's very, very hard to predict. Like,
it is.
You know what I mean? And put kind of reason on that. Do you know what I mean? But then again, you could be right. Like, maybe, like, because he's been in Asia for years, was he exposed to the same kind of level as strength and conditioning as they are over here? Maybe not. Might have played a factor. But yeah, it just goes to show you that, like, physically they have to be at it. Like, and that's what I say to the lads. Like, it needs to be their life.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it literally needs to be their life. Like, because they want pro contracts and they want to get to the top. They need to eat, sleep, breathe, football, everything, gym. Well, some of my lads don't like some of the lads that I train don't like gym, and I say, well, learn to like it. Like,
this is where you find the better players. You look at Ibrahimovic, for example, and I think he's about coming up to 39, 40 now, and he's got his own physio, his own S&C coach, his own whatever. Speaking to Kev Ellison the other last month, who's again I think he's about 41 now, but he's had a structure in his training for every pre-season, and he's done it for the past 20 odd years, from Premier League down to League One, League Two, and it's worked, and it's all because he's got this structure, and he's got the right mindset to progress. And Ibrahimovic the same, Ronaldo the same. Obviously, there's a big difference in terms of League One, League Two, wages and everything, but you've got to make the best out of your resources, haven't you, really? So,
like, the thing is, I can laugh at some of the lads go to me, well, Messi doesn't do much gym. And I always say, listen, when you can do what Messi does, you don't have to touch a barbell. Like, fine, don't worry about it, just leave it. If you can do what he can do, it's fine. But that's the reason why I say, the reason why you need to do that is because you need to try and bridge the gap.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? Because you're not as good as Messi.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of people who aren't as good as Messi and aren't going to be as good as Messi. But you need to try and get one over on other people by being the most strongest, the most powerfulest.
Well, this is it. I mean? This is another danger, isn't it? Obviously, there's big comparisons between this person doesn't do that, but that person does do that. And obviously, there's a reason. Everyone's biological age is different. Everyone's recovery rate is different. And obviously, every player's got the strengths, and every player's got the developmental areas. And obviously, we look at let's talk about Messi again. There, he might not like being in the gym, but he doesn't. for his position, he doesn't really need to be, he doesn't need to be hinged, does he? Really,
Exactly,
as long as he can hold as a number 10, as long as he can hold the ball up well, and he's, fortunately he's blessed with speed and good feet. That's all that matters. And understanding your position, understanding what your strengths are, that is ultimately what's going to progress you to become a better version of yourself.
Yeah, like there's a couple of examples of just even Ronaldo. Ronaldo takes care of himself, unbelievable.
He does.
And look at the level he's still playing at a level like that.
Yeah.
And then you've got someone like Traore in the Premier League.
Oh,
he's an absolute beast.
But he doesn't even go in the gym either, does he? Supposedly.
Listen,
I don't believe it personally, but
people have said that to me. But fair enough if you don't. That's sound, but
I want what he's eating.
What is he eating? Like, you know what I mean?
It must be on Optimum Nutrition protein shakes or something like that.
Oh, it must be 10 a day, mate. Trust me. But that's just an example of someone his physical attributes have been highlighted game after game after game, and that's an example of where it's important because there's no one catching that man.
There's not.
He gets round it.
There's not.
You know
it is absolutely insane. So so of course you've got a great background in the S&C with obviously working with elite athletes, and now you're delving into something, not something new necessarily, but you're coming onto a new, investigating something else. So do you want to touch upon a bit upon RD performance and tell us all a bit about?
No, so basically because of the whole COVID thing, I was just doing a lot of training over COVID, and especially when we were allowed to train people. I was training a lot of people at home, kind of in my garage, to be honest with you. And then I just thought, you know what, to be fair, I do think there's a lot of kind of fluff.
Yeah, loads.
In the conditioning world, and I'm not one to have arguments with people or anything like that. But I just like to think that people are good quality kind of strength condition, and that's kind of RD performance came to light. It's just basically a page of just to share a bit of content to help people kind of improve their game, increase their kind of athletic capabilities, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So, and I've started now for a week, and it's been good so far. So
it's flown, isn't it? Because I think you've had is it 200 or at least 250 plus, isn't it, within a week? So it's growing up really well, and you've got some good content. But I suppose the difference, Ryan, with that is you're not just posting for the sake of posting. You're posting with a bit of an education behind it, aren't you? So that when people do look at it, they can think, right, well, because I was looking at something earlier on, and I looked at it. I think it was the floating. I think it was the floating heel or something.
Floating heel, yeah.
And I looked at it and I thought, what's it all about? But then obviously you look at the side and there's an editorial. So it doesn't matter how long you've been in the game. There's always something to learn, and
Yeah, no, it's exactly. I think that you'd be surprised at the amount of people especially that just your normal gym goers, your team spot, don't know about potentiation effect, don't know about clusters, don't know about kind of stuff to do about hamstring injuries and groins. And listen, I'm not I have so much to learn still.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think I have a decent enough knowledge to help people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's obviously sports scientists and S&C coaches in the world that would probably blow me out of the water. Do you know what I mean? Because they've got 10 plus years experience.
But the thing is, though, it's a lot of the time it's not what you know, it's who. It's not what you know, it's who you know. But at the same time, this determines a good coach from a bad coach, because I've worked with so many coaches over 20 years of being in the industry now, and it's I've worked with some absolute poor coaches who are qualified up to the mountains, but then I've worked with some coaches who they self-study, and they're not afraid to put content out there, and they're always willing to learn, and that differentiates a good quality coach from a poor one. And at the end of the day, they will get called out in the end, because
it's even that's really, even for myself. I invest a lot of money, my own money, into my own kind of CPD. I just came off the back of a 12-week mentorship with Sam Portland.
Oh yeah.
Who's a speed coach, an elite speed coach, and it was phenomenal. And again, so obviously for me, so I thought my kind of knowledge and the whole kind of strength and power thing was decent enough, and I wanted to add another layer to my game, kind of the speed game. So I want to really try and hone in and improve the speed of my athletes. But yeah, listen, just kind of constantly developing and trying to improve things and help as many people as I can, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's pretty much first class. I guess with that, you could look at it as an education package. It's obviously going to benefit every athlete that you're working with, and if we do get hit with another period of COVID or even for pre-season, you've got the materials there, and when it comes to differentiating yourself from other people or what you bring to the board, you can turn around and say, well, I've got all this, I've got this 30-40 video library which I give to my athletes for the 6-week break that they're on, whereas and then they go to another coach, say, right, well, what do you give your players? They just get a generic training program with no videos, with no explanation, and that's ultimately what's going to set you higher than somebody else. And
I think essentially what I want to do in my page, it's not even just put up a video and say, right, do this, but I want to educate people on why to do it, so they come with like my lads. Like the boys in Wednesday, they know stuff about strength and conditioning. Like they know you need to squat heavy for force production. They know what plyometrics does. They know why an RDL is a good thing for eccentric hamstring strength. They know that.
Yeah.
So they're just not coming in doing this, and this. They understand. And I think that's what I'm trying to get through on the page as well.
And of course, it's going to end up leading to injury prevention, and
exactly, yeah.
And that's the most important thing as coaches that we want to do, is obviously we want to get the players out there for as long as possible, and not and not have them on the sidelines, because of course when it comes to football or elite sport in general, the longer they're on the sidelines, the harder it's going to be to get back in the game. And
I think obviously what a lot of people say is the best ability is availability.
Yeah,
it's always been the strongest and fittest, but if you're always on the sideline and not playing ball,
down everything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly, mate.
No one wants to be. No one. He gets a lot. He was a great player, but because he was on the sidelines for so long, unfortunately had that reputation as sick note, didn't he? Really, but no one wants that reputation. I'd have liked his skill. And I'd have liked his.
Yeah, but then there's other. Listen, that's what I mean. That strength and conditioning and S&C and sports science, like it's just part of a puzzle. Like I know there's people that have never got injured and don't do anything.
Yeah.
And great, like that's class. Do you know what I mean? But there's certainly a lot of people which has helped as well. So, yeah.
That's true. Well, that's magic. Well. To sort of wrap it up, it's been great having a chat, and we could, there's certainly many different areas that we could probably go into. But do you just want to give the guys an insight as to where they can find you, where they can find out a bit more about you, and get in touch with you should they wish to?
Yeah, so you can get me on my email. I'm quite active on my email, to be fair. Or Devlin10 at iCloud.com. Also on Instagram at performance, so it's performance_RD. And then, Twitter as well, Ryan Dev 10. So that's my kind of three. Main one probably be an Instagram, to be honest with you, because I'm always kind of on it at the minute. So
it's hard not to go on Insta these days, isn't it? So
no, mate. I went through a phase where I was like, I'm gonna get my screen time down. So I thought my screen time was down, but then once I had the idea of the Instagram page,
gotta go back on it.
That's
perfect. Well, we'll stick the links for the guys below anyway, so they can find out. But Ryan, it's been absolutely fantastic having a chat with you and finding out more about your role and your experience and everything. And guys, definitely hit Ryan up on his social media channels, and I'm sure that he'll help as much as he can. So Ryan, thanks very much for your time, buddy, and look forward to catching up soon. All the best for the rest of the season.
Perfect, Chris. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, cheers, buddy.
I'll see you then.